Welcome to the Geekcentric Podcast. My name is Nate, and joining me for this special Behind the Geeks episode, we have my very own Space Ranger in training, Justin Lawrence. How are you doing today, Justin?
Oh, I'm riding high, man. Today was a good day. The interviews we had was fantastic.
Well, listen, before we get to all of that, and sort of why today's episode is so special, I want to remind you, if you're watching or listening, that our spoiler-free review for Disney and Pixar's Lightyear will be out later this evening. So definitely subscribe, click all the things you need to do to be able to hear that or see that. I'm very excited for everyone to find out what everyone thinks of it. I think we all fell in love with Socks the cat, and I'm excited to see the fandom around that, the GIFs.
Yeah, the GIFs are going to be endless.
Dude, I'm so stoked. And Disney, if you're listening, where are my socks? Like, how is that not? That's got to be a thing, right? That's got to be a thing.
It will be.
But we are, right? But we're not here to talk about socks, are we, Justin?
No, we are not. Today was a real honor to be able to have a chance to sit down with Angus MacLane, the filmmaker, the director and screenwriter of Lightyear, along with producing partner Galyn Susman. And a huge thanks to Disney Studios Canada for helping to set up this interview and these interviews, if you will, because it's an absolute honor to just sit down and talk to the people that make the stuff that we love. And
absolutely,
that's why we're geeks about it, right? So at the end of the day,
and Pixar specifically is mind-blowing to me that we've had this opportunity to speak to folks from Pixar and behind all of these movies, but specifically Lightyear. I had the opportunity to talk to, as you'll hear and see, Michael Giacchino, who is Oscar-winning Michael Giacchino.
Oscar-winning, yeah.
Dude, one of my absolute favorites. We always say he's the GOAT. He's done so many projects that I don't even want to start to list them because it'll probably take the rest of this video. So definitely that was mind-blowing for me to get a chance to sit with him. And I'm so stoked to let everyone see these interviews and see kind of what we heard from them. So why don't we just get to it?
I think we should. Let's do it, buddy. Welcome to the Geekcentric Podcast. My name is Justin. How are you guys doing today?
Good,
Great.
Justin. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I know you guys have a busy day, so I'm going to get right into the questions here. My first question is actually for Angus. I know on Twitter recently you had shared that this is your first directing feature, and you've been a part of the company of Pixar for 25 years, which is amazing. Congratulations. I just wanted to know, what were some of the highlights of taking on this director role, and as well, were there any challenges for you?
Well, directing a movie is a difficult undertaking in general. It combines so many different disciplines all at once. I would say it was a real highlight to get to actually do the work and do the job and to get to make this insane vision of. There was a combination of all my geeky fascinations. It's very much a amalgam of things I think are cool in the sci-fi universe, or influences that are all as this giant geek smorgasbord, if you will,
perfect.
from geek to geek. So just my sensibility. And as far as the challenges of, it's just the biggest challenge was how can I make this movie the coolest, most awesome movie it can be? And every film has compromise, every film has constraints, but I'm so proud of the movie that we made. And it's very much all encompassing, night and day, thinking about it for 5.5 years. And here you go. This is what we have. So.
Well, you did not disappoint, and visuals were outstanding. I saw it in IMAX, and I was just blown away at how immersive it was. Bravo. My next question is actually for Galyn. As a producer who's been a part of so many Pixar movies, what got you excited about telling this story about Lightyear?
Oh, well, two things. First off, it's sci-fi, right? I love sci-fi. It's so much fun.
Right.
And I really loved the opportunity to take an aspirational character like Buzz and give him real human dimension and flaws and, things to grow and learn. And you have this opportunity, right? It's the table is now set to take a loved character and have a message that's positive and heartwarming with it, along with making great sci-fi. So come on, that's an amazing combination. I'm so lucky.
Well, it's so funny because it inherently looks like a Pixar movie, but it feels so different. But that heart that you talk about, that to me is so inherently Pixar. So it stays grounded in having a really heartfelt connection with the character and humanizing Buzz Lightyear beyond just being a toy. You guys have been touching on it as we've been discussing here, but I got to know, like this movie does feel like a love letter to sci-fi. So what were some of your inspirations from both of you when crafting this story?
Well, I wanted to seat the movie in the aesthetics of the 1977 to 1987 sci-fi universe. At post Star Wars, there was every year a genre classic. There was in 1979 was Aliens, 1980 was Empire Strikes Back, 81 was Return of the Jedi, 82 was Poltergeist and The Thing, 83 was Return of the Jedi, 84 was Ghostbusters, 85 was Back to the Future, 86 was Aliens and The Fly. 80, so just let me get through the whole line here. RoboCop and Predator in 87, and then Alien Nation came out, and then there were no more sci-fi movies. I'm joking, of course. So those were the movies that I was most inspired by, and to me there was a sense of scope and excitement about them. To me as a kid, that I wanted to infuse that into the film.
Yeah, I got 2001 Space Odyssey vibes. I got Interstellar. I got Martian. Like there's just, it feels like this is, again, just an amalgamation of so many different sci-fi movies. And this, again, very much a love letter to the sci-fi genre. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I have one last question here. In regards to using IMAX and leveraging that as a method of storytelling. How early on were those conversations beginning, and how did you figure out how to, basically utilize that in a way that helped create more of a grand scope to this story?
Angus said, how about IMAX pretty early on in the process, and pitched it to the president actually of Pixar, Jim Morris, and Jim was like, oh yeah, great, of course. And so really from day one, we were designing it for IMAX. We were able to put together a whole different pipeline for production that would allow us to do IMAX and a regular widescreen at the same time and not double the work, which was really important. And so we were really able to prepare for it and seed it in. And then our cinematographer, Jeremy Lasky, really dove in and looked at how IMAX had been used, how he could use it as a storytelling device, a framing device, how to bring drama to things like being launched into space, where you launch into IMAX at the same time. And it really, it creates, at least for me, it created a breathtaking experience. I was like, and to be shocked by your own footage is pretty great.
I have to ask, what was your reaction? Did you feel the change? Was it utilized as a storytelling medium for you? What was your experience?
My experience was fantastic. It definitely enhanced it. It was so immersive. At times, just the way it was so captivating, and how space, we're just looking at stars and black sky and stars, but it was so immersive. And I think that it really elevated it. And I wanted to thank you as well for finding a way to blend the non-IMAX footage with the IMAX footage that didn't feel jarring. I always kind of feel like it kind of takes me out. So I think, again, this elevated the entire movie for me. It really made it a very enjoyable experience. My time is running out. I really appreciate you guys taking the time. You guys are fantastic. This movie is fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
From the bottom of my heart for bringing it to life.
All right. I'm so glad you liked it.
Thank you.
Have a great day, guys. Enjoy the rest of the interviews.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey there, Nate. How are you?
Thank you so much for your time. Welcome to the Geekcentric Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
Good to see it. Good to see it. I have been such a huge fan of your work, all the way back to Maui Mallard on the SNES.
Oh my God, you're just dating yourself in a huge way.
I mean, maybe I didn't play it right away, but I played it when I was younger, and up into including Life and Death from Lost and Married Life from Up. I have to ask, just on those two songs alone, between you and Pixar, why do you love to make us cry so much?
Because it's what makes us honest. It's the thing that, everyone needs to cry. If they don't, you're missing out on a great sort of way to sort of look at the world and look at yourself and think of things. And I don't know, I just feel like all the moments you remember, all the moments I remember from movies, so much of them are the most emotional parts of those movies. And because that's where you can most identify with the person that you're watching on screen. That's when you're saying, oh man, I have felt that way too. I know what I mean? Those things. I can't identify with someone jumping out of a helicopter. I can watch it and enjoy it, but that's not something I can identify with, thank God. But I can identify with real life moments. And that's where I really put everything into those to help make that experience feel more real and more truthful, and and help that story get told. That's the reason.
Very cool. I mean, speaking about those emotional beats, I got to see Lightyear in IMAX, and dude, what an incredible visual treat that was, obviously accompanied by your brilliant score. And I have to ask, when you're going into a Pixar movie especially, what goes into choosing the right sounds and instrumentation that might be different from some of the other movies you've done?
They give me a lot of freedom there. We've done a lot of work together over the years, and and one of the great things about that is this level of trust we each have with each other. And so it's really more about what they'll ask me, what are you thinking about this? And how, and I present to them, in the early stages of what we do, I write a suite of music, which encompasses all the themes and all the ideas and the characters, and I play it for them, and I was like, this is how the movie made me feel, in whatever stage it was at the time that I saw it. And most of the time it's still storyboards, it's still really rough in general. But through a lot of extensive conversations with Angus, and Angus and I are great friends already, so we're always geeking out on things no matter what. And so it's just really about just hitting home at what is at the heart and the truth of this story we are trying to tell. And it's not talking about visuals. It's not talking about any of that. It's all just emotional core. What is happening there? And so that's what I aim for first. And it's really about digging into the characters.
I love that. Yeah, digging into the feelings throughout the movie making
because
process.
That's ultimately what music does for a movie, is help you understand the emotional, help you understand what these characters are feeling, what they're going through, not necessarily what they're doing, but what they're thinking, what they're feeling. And that's where you want to be. So as an audience member, you can then connect to these characters. And it doesn't matter if it's live action or animated, it's the same process. They are both the same.
I love that.
Because if you think about it in animation, yes, Remy is a rat. He's not real. But guess what? Captain Kirk isn't real either. That's like
totally.
Even though you're dealing with characters and stories on either front, so they're exactly the same.
Okay. I also wanted to bring up the great Randy Newman, who composed the original Toy Story movies. He's given Toy Story and especially Buzz some memorable themes and recognizable sounds. And when listening to the soundtrack while watching this movie, you hear a lot of these audio callbacks to those original themes. I wanted to know, when for you carrying the music forward for the character of Lightyear, what would be the musical reference that you're most proud of that you were able to just sort of reinvigorate?
We didn't reference anything directly from what we did. There was no reference. Maybe the spirit of it felt right, but there were no themes that we used. We couldn't, because this Buzz is different from the Buzz that Randy worked with. This is a very different Buzz. This is a completely different thing. You have Randy's Buzz Lightyear was the toy. Mm-hmm. And my Buzz Lightyear is the human that toy is based on. So it's a very different thing. So we didn't delve into using any of the thematic material that Randy did. And let me just also say how brilliant Randy is. And he's one of my absolute heroes on so many fronts, not just film scoring, songwriting, storytelling, all of those things. He, in my opinion, is one of the world's greatest storytellers. Just forget musician. He's one of the best storytellers we've ever had. So I love him to death. But yeah, this was about taking this character and developing. It's a whole new space for this place, for this guy. And so that was the challenge there, doing that, which was a lot of fun. But hopefully some of the spirit of what Randy did survives, and maybe that's what you were feeling. And if
I think so.
that makes
Yeah.
me happy. So that's good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely felt I felt back to my childhood, and
Good.
especially hearing the music that's been put out so far. And speaking of your albums and some of the trends that go along with your albums, it seems that there's always a world's worst track on every single album. With The Incredibles, one of my favorites is World's Worst Babysitters. I have to ask, is there a world's worst on this album, and are you allowed to say what it is yet?
Well, I'm not sure if that track ended up on the soundtrack or not, because a lot of times when you're doing the soundtrack, you pick and choose sort of what are the best things to put up there, what makes the best story. I'd have to get back to you on that one, but that world first tradition goes way back to Alias, working on Alias with my music editor at that time, and he's also the same music editor that worked on Lightyear as well. He would name a bunch of the cues, and it started this whole thing with us where we would get into these contests, who could come up with the crazier cue titles for them. You got to think of something. You got something to do while you're working on all this stuff. It gives you something crazy to do. But World's Worst came out of Alias, and then I think it's been in almost every movie. This year it's been so busy, it's so crazy, it's hard to remember exactly every detail about everything. It was just a race to get everything done.
No worries. I'll have to, when I download the album, as soon as it's available, I'm gonna have to check that out. And lastly, I have to ask, you've had the opportunity to work with so many different directors, and you've even sat in the director's chair before, and you've obviously helped to direct a lot of parts of even this movie from what I was seeing from the press conference. I want to know, is there any chance we're going to get to see you behind the director's chair for an upcoming movie or series anytime soon? I'd love to see it.
Well, I am in the middle of something right now with my friends at Marvel that we're finishing up. So yeah, so the answer is yes. We'll just leave it at that, I guess.
Totally. Yeah, totally. That's totally fair. That's more than enough. Michael, thank you so much for your time again. I can't wait to both hear and see what you do soon. Thank you so much.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Cheers.
Take care.
Dude.
Okay, dude, we just got a confirmation here that Giacchino is working on something with Marvel. So
yeah, dude.
I don't know if that's been all confirmed, because it seemed like he was.
It's been rumored for a long time. Yeah, it's been rumored for a long time.
Yeah, so he even seems like he still can't really talk about it, but maybe it's out there that he is doing work. So I don't know.
It's pretty cool, we just broke the news. I think. Yeah, right. I think the Geekcentric Podcast has broken
first time
this
ever.
News.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. It was absolutely insane to have Angus and Michael and Galyn on the show. I think, it's again, as we mentioned earlier, it's such a blessing and a pleasure to be able to sit down with the people that make the movies and the music that we love, and that has just been such a huge part of our lives for such a long time. So it's so cool to see that. And everything that Pixar has done, we're such huge fans. I loved with Angus, when he kind of turned the interview around on you and started asking your thoughts on your IMAX experience.
And it's funny too, because that's at the end, and I get the notification please wrap up, and I'm like, oh, okay, he's asking me a question here, I'm gonna answer now. And I was rushing to get the answer out, and I coherent enough, but it was cool to have a filmmaker ask me as an audience member, how did you feel about what you saw? And honestly, that's great, because then it really just shows how much of a geek he is too. There's a couple geek references that he points out in the interview, and I feel like it harkens to this idea that he's overly passionate, about the craft that he does. And it was such an honor to have that moment of where I can at least gush a little bit about why I love this movie so much, because IMAX, I think, is the only way to really see this movie, because it's 100%. Stunning. It's 100%. Absolutely stunning.
Totally. As you'll hear in our spoiler-free review, you definitely absolutely have to see this in IMAX. Do whatever you can to see it in IMAX, because it felt like as I said in the review, it felt like a Disney ride at times. That's what it felt like. So I'm stoked to see what we get next from these legendary creators. It was cool to see Peter Son in the press conference that we got. He's the one he's the voice of Socks, and he's also directing the next Pixar movie, Elemental. So hopefully we get to hear from him again. But also, Michael and Angus and Galyn, if you ever want to join us on the podcast ever again, let us know. Hit us up now that we're friends. I think we can say that, right, Justin?
Absolutely. I'd like to think it. I'd like to think that we are. So
totally. I think so. Well, that is it. We hope you enjoyed this special Behind the Geeks episode and interview. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts, and here if you're watching on YouTube. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts of Lightyear, of its incredible visuals and phenomenal soundtrack, well, let me just blast us into hyperspeed over to Justin so he can let you know how to reach us.
Well, they can reach out to us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Now, if that's a little too out there for you, you can also reach out to us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
Keep in mind, we also have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies, TV shows, games, including our recent spoiler-filled review for episodes 1 to 3 of The Boys Season 3, where it got a little bit, maybe don't listen to that one with your kids. But we also did give our spoiler-free reviews, again, as I said, coming up soon for Lightyear later this evening. But we also have our spoiler-free review for Miss Marvel, which, speaking of interviews, Justin also had a great interview with the directors of Miss Marvel episode 1 and 6, Adil and Bilal, which, dude, they were so hype. You got so hype with them. Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, another great interview for the books, man.
Totally. Go check that out. And speaking of Miss Marvel, we have we have watch clubs, which if you're watching on YouTube right now, don't know what that is. It's kind of like a book club, but better, where we break down our theories and thoughts on the series that we love. And we have 2 watch clubs going on right now each week, one for Miss Marvel and one for Obi-Wan. So definitely go give those a listen. Justin, thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. And as we say, love ya.
Peace.